Welcome to this episode of Office Origami. My name's Kevin Keeler, and I am joined as usual by Tim Banting. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Kevin. How are things?
They're good as can be expected in these interesting times. So today we are going to talk about the ways to track tasks and to-dos using Microsoft Office, and there certainly are a whole bunch of different ways. I mean, arguably maybe too many ways. So let's dive in and take a look at some of the ways. But one of the things just off the top is we're not trying to cover these in detail. I think our intent here is just to make you aware of all the different tools that you have at your exposure, at your fingertips if you're using the Office 365 suite. So with that, let me bring up some slides. So let's talk first about tracking some tasks in Outlook. In terms of creating tasks, you can, click on the task or the to-do icon that's at the bottom of what they call the folder pane. That's shown kind of, the part of the screen is shown with item number 1. If you can see that little icon, depends on how wide that folder pane is. If you click on that, that'll allow you to create a task, or you can choose task under the new items, which is in the ribbon bar, which is shown as number 2. Or the quickest way to do it is you can use Control-Shift-K, that's the keyboard equivalent. So in the typical Microsoft fashion, there's lots of ways to create a task, but all of those bring you to really what's shown in the kind of task details window as item number 3. And for task details, you can record things like the name, the start date, the due date, the status, and percentage complete, as well as you can set a reminder. And then if you click on details, you can see like when it was completed, the total work, so you can track how much time you're spending on it, the actual work, mileage if it's an expense item, or if you want to use it, record mileage for billing purposes, and then additional billing information. And you can also, which is key, is you can assign the task to someone else. So you can effectively delegate the task. So that's pretty neat. In Outlook, you can do that. So that's one of the kind of task tracking tools inside of Office 365. And the other that I just want to mention is there's also a concept of to-dos that are separate. So tasks that I talked about before, they're separate from emails, but also in Outlook you can create to-dos from specific emails. So to do that, either you click on the flag that I've highlighted where number 1 is, and then that'll basically turn on the to-do flag. So you're highlighting that email has to-do information. Or you can, right click on the flag if you want to set a specific, when it's due. So you can then pick from the drop down that's shown there, you can pick, today, tomorrow, this week, or a specific date. Or you can, if you don't want to click on that flag, you can choose follow up from the Outlook menu. So, both you've got tasks and to-dos in Outlook. So that's one of the ways that you can track your tasks and to-dos, but there's a whole bunch of different ways. And to talk about those, why don't we turn it over to you, Tim?
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, the other way that we described in our last Office Origami was simply dragging an email down into that little task flag in the left-hand column, and it will automatically register a task for you. But one thing that I like doing is I do a lot of email triage when I'm sat either having a break or lunch or of an evening. And one thing that I wanted to highlight here was the tasks in Microsoft To Do in the mobile app. So there's a number of things that you can do to actually view your tasks in Outlook and the Manage To Do that you've previously described. All you have to do is to sign in with your personal account or your work email, and then you can enable the flagged email list by selecting that in the show list, the option in the show list. And you can turn that list on in settings, either on the web or the app or the mobile. So that's highlighted in bullet point number 1. You can also turn on planner notifications there and tasks in planner, which is worth doing. And we'll talk you through what the advantages are there later on today. But the other thing that I like to do in Outlook is go into settings and to manage the different swipes that you've got. So you can swipe left or right. So in bullet point number 2, what I'm highlighting here is that you can change your swipe right to perhaps flag an email. So that will automatically come up in your to-do list. So to do that, you just go into settings, click on change, and you can change that to flag. And what I typically do is swipe left, I change that to delete. So when I'm going through my emails of an evening or at lunchtime, I can either flag it for follow-up for to-do, or I can just simply delete it. There are other settings you can do. You can archive it, but those are the typical ones that I like to do because it's nice and quick. So any tasks that I make through that swiping, it will turn up as a flagged indication in flagged emails. So bullet point 3 just shows you in to do that a flagged email will just come up in the to-do list. And what's nice is that Microsoft have got Outlook apps, they've got planner apps and to-do apps, and all of those tasks are stored on Exchange Online Services. So regardless of where it appears, it will be replicated across the whole of Microsoft's estate. The other thing that's quite interesting as well is for anyone that uses OneNote, I use it quite a lot, but I didn't typically use tasks as I'm taking notes in a meeting. But also any OneNote tasks that you make in OneNote, they'll also appear across the estate. So that's also an interesting area to flag.
So Tim, and just for everybody's benefit, so you've got the Outlook app that I think people are familiar with, but Microsoft To Do, that's a separate app that you need to install, and you can install it both on your desktop and your mobile. And then, obviously OneNote, I think more people are familiar with it, but that's a separate app as well. So, I just want to make sure because, it's funny because not a lot of people are familiar necessarily with Microsoft To Do as an app, right?
That's right. The nice thing is, although they're different apps, they're all being stored almost like a task database across Microsoft's estate using Exchange Online Services. So wherever you make a task, it will be replicated across the whole lot. So thankfully, they're all coming together because previously it was very difficult. As you rightly point out, do I create a task in Outlook? Do I create it in Planner? Do I create it in OneNote? Where is it all stored? But thankfully, it's all coming together. And the one app that rules them all really is the To Do app. So that's worth looking at. The other thing that's quite nice in bullet point number 3 is that, no problem, if we go back in bullet point number 3, you can add dates and reminders and steps where appropriate. But if you look there, you can also open in Outlook. So if I'm in my to-do list and I'm trying to think, now Kevin sent me an email, I can't remember what it is, but I created a task. You can just click the open in Outlook and that will open it up in the mobile app as well. So what's good around the flagging of email is that it is available in To Do. So whether or not that's in the mobile app, in the desktop app, or the web app, you just have to go to settings and click flagged email on. So as you pointed out, Kevin, any emails that you flag will appear in this task database and will appear in To Do. So all you have to do is right click on an email, click on the follow up, add the date, or you can actually set a quick action, which is quite useful. So I typically use quick actions to set for today. So if my boss or anyone in my team has an important email that I need to action today, I just set a quick action there. And all of that gets put through to your to-do list and gets replicated across the whole Microsoft estate.
And then there's another application as well, of course. So talk us through Tasks in Planner, Tim.
Yeah, so Planner again is available as a separate app in mobile, or it actually comes up in Teams as well, which is an interesting area. So everything is getting replicated across the whole of the estate, as I've mentioned. But if you have tasks already assigned to you, you may see the banner that comes up that shows list in bullet point number 1, or you might actually have to go in and turn it on. So you can turn on the tasks in the planner view, and anything that's assigned to you, you get a smart list that shows up in planner. So your flagged emails, any tasks that your manager may have set you, or any tasks that your team may have set you, they'll all show up in planner. And that's a separate app on the mobile phone. It comes up in Teams, as we already said, or it can be viewed as a web app as well. There's just a couple of things that I want to point out there. Although you can create a planner task from To Do, you can't edit any assignees. So if I want to delegate a task to one of my team, I have to do that within Planner. I can't do that within To Do. And the other thing that I can't do is create it as a regular reoccurring task. So if I'm in To Do, for example, I can't create a regular reoccurring task to record Office Origami, for example. So various ways. You've just got to be aware of wherever you. Sorry, you've got to bear in mind what restrictions you've got from wherever you're creating a task. To Do is really a great place to view and tick off tasks, but it has got some restrictions there.
And then there's yet another way to track tasks, and that's Microsoft Lists. And those lists are available in SharePoint. And also you can add lists as the Lists application from Teams. So, number 1 shows, how you can create a list in SharePoint, and then there's different templates for lists. And I've pricked showing that in number 1. I've highlighted, the templates that's the work progress tracker list. And, then it creates this list that's shown in number 2, and it has a whole bunch of fields that you would use to track tasks. The good thing about lists is that any list can be fully customized. You can add whatever columns you want. The bad thing about lists is, unlike the other pieces that Tim said are integrated into the estate, I like that wording. This is not in part of the estate, and so it's standalone. The other thing I just want to point out is, you can put the list application inside of Teams. I don't know, like the icon, and that's shown in number 3. I don't know. Maybe that looks like an old Apple icon, or anyway, it's like you wouldn't, when you look in Teams and you add the list application, for some reason, to me at least, that doesn't look very Microsoft-like. So when I was installing, I'm like, who created this application? But it turns out that is the Microsoft List application. If you don't have a need to customize it, I'm going to say maybe you don't want to use Microsoft List, just because at least right now it's very separate from the other applications that we've talked about. So Tim, just in terms of some concluding thoughts, like I see this task management as really being an illustration of kind of Microsoft's scattershot or shotgun approach to doing a lot of things. I mean, Microsoft is a big organization, so it seems to me like they have lots of teams, and they say, okay, group 1, you go figure out a task management. Group 2, go create a to-do application. Group 3. And so they try different things. And then, hopefully over time, I think they reconcile those. And as we talked about, they're starting to bring them together. But I would say, preparing for this episode, like I certainly, as usual, learned a bunch of things. There's new options that I hadn't seen, or they may not have been there a couple of months ago when I last looked. This seems to be very confusing. I mean, I'm a little confused, and certainly I think it reemphasizes the need for training, but I don't know. Do you find this, like, I don't know, it's confusing to me? Like, is it, I don't know, you seem to have a better handle on it.
Yeah. It really is confusing. I almost feel that the acquisition of Wunderlist by Microsoft brought together some thinking around tasks and also that integration across the board. So having it separate separated out as a sort of task database seems to make sense. The to-do list is great for viewing all of those places, all of those tasks in one place. Not so great for creating tasks across groups, but it's good for your own individual tasks.
Right.
So that you've got to be aware that I can view everything across everything. I can view tasks across everything. Whether or not that's OneNote or Planner or Outlook in To Do. But I've got to be aware of where I make those tasks because I might be restricted in what I can do. So it's coming together. At least all the tasks get replicated across the boards and you can view them all in To Do. There's various things that suit your own individual work style. However, it does feel very confusing. And I almost feel like lists is going to be one of those things that will get pushed out unless you want to do customized stuff yourself. I think for large enterprises, bring it all together, and particularly in teams, is a really great move forward because you'll have people that are more teams orientated or more email orientated. Regardless of that, wherever you assign your tasks, whether or not that's a follow-on task in Outlook or whether or not that's a task in Teams, it's going to be replicated across the board.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. Yeah, I think, SharePoint lists, which are also Teams lists. I mean, that's really a general purpose tool, and I love SharePoint lists. Right? So maybe we can talk about that in another episode. But I find a lot of organizations they use an Excel spreadsheet to try to track things, but lists are much better. But I think they're probably not great for tracking tasks because we've got all these different applications. The other thing to point out is that Teams task application. This is a little weird. I can't keep track of it, but it was there used to be, in Teams, you got planner and task. And now I think you've got tasks by planner and to do.
That's right.
And then eventually I think they're planning to just call it task.
Yeah.
But it's going to be planner. So, I mean, I guess I understand what Microsoft is doing, but changing, having a 3-step process to modify the name of an application, I think that's somewhat confusing to mere mortals, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And the last thing is obviously with all these different tools, you could certainly be asked, well, what's the best to use? And I think you've shared some good tips. For me, it really is obviously if I'm using something, especially if I'm trying to delegate tasks or if I'm delegating them and the recipients aren't using any of these tools, or if they're using a different tool, that's not really going to work well. So I think, where I've had success is where the group that's working on a project gets together and we all agree that we're going to use this in this particular way. I've had success with that. Where I haven't had success is where I try to start using something and I say, oh, I'm going to create a planner and then nobody else is using it. So lo and behold, none of the tasks actually get done, or then I just revert to sending emails to everybody, which of course defeats the purpose.
Yeah, for me, if I'm doing personal tasks for myself, I like using Outlook and flagged emails in Outlook. Mm-hmm. I also like using To Do for personal tasks. If it's my team, I like to use Planner, which shows up everywhere, but I can get a status update very quickly. So it's really sort of working out what works for you. Individual tasks for me, it's to-do lists and flagged emails in Outlook. For group tasks, it's Planner. But of course, it's not the sort of project management software that a lot of people need for an organization, of course.
Yeah, I think that's an important point because if you are a project manager and you're used to, Gantt charts and PERT charts and managing the critical path and doing resource balancing, none of these tools are designed to do that. That's kind of like Microsoft Project, which is the industrial strength, tool. That being said, I think one of the problems with Microsoft Project is it's often so complicated that super PMPs create a project plan, but then a lot of the team members are intimidated by Microsoft Project, so they never go in and check it. So maybe one of the kind of the lightweight to do and assignment tracking things that we talked about actually have better results in terms of illuminating what people should be working on when. So
definitely, yeah, definitely. I think for most organizations, what we've discussed today will fit for many organizations.
well, no, that's terrific. So I guess that brings us to the end of this episode. Any wrap up thoughts or comments, Tim?
Teams is a work in progress. As I say, all the tasks all the tasks are stored on Exchange Online Services, so that they appear across Microsoft's estate, which is really good. We spoke about lists. We spoke about the more industrial strength project planning capabilities of Microsoft. But I think we've covered everything that we need to cover, Kevin.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Office Origami. And, you know, it may take a little bit of work. I don't know, you may need to fold the blank piece of paper a whole bunch of times and refold it and unfold it and start again. But, you know, certainly there's a whole bunch of capabilities and power that is in some ways hidden inside of Office 365. Hopefully with this episode, you'll be inclined to take a look at some of these task and to-do management tools. Thank you.